My daughter-in-law threw my only dress into the trash and told me I'd do nothing but embarrass my son at his big promotion gala. I looked down at the torn cardboard box. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just reminded myself of one very simple fact. That house belonged to me. And the company hosting the gala. Yeah, that was mine too. The dress for my son's gala was gone. I stood outside by the recycling bin in the driveway, staring at the ripped packaging of the navy blue formal gown I'd ordered online. My name was still printed clearly on the shipping label, Marilyn Vance, 66 years old widow. The dress wasn't haute couture, but it was elegant enough for my son Derek's promotion ceremony. Tomorrow night, he was officially moving up to regional director. I walked back inside the house I shared with Derek and his wife Chloe. Ever since my husband passed away 2 years ago, the two of them had been living in the upstairs apartment while I stayed downstairs. It was my house, completely paid off and debt-free. But over the last few months, Chloe's tone had shifted. She was subtly taking over our daily lives, rearranging my kitchen, and often talking about me as if I weren't even in the room. "Marilyn, did you finish the laundry yet?" Chloe called down the stairs. She stepped into the hallway, dressed beautifully, her hair styled to perfection. She looked at me, then down at my empty hands. A fleeting, cold smile crossed her lips. "Oh, by the way, if you're looking for that package of yours, I threw it out. That dress was so outdated. You'd only embarrass Derek at the gala. It's honestly better if you just stay home tomorrow night and keep an eye on the cat." I didn't feel any urge to scream. My heart beat steadily. I looked Chloe dead in the eye. She was clearly waiting for tears or an argument. Derek came down the stairs behind her, his eyes glued to his smartphone. He didn't even glance up at me. "Derek," I said quietly. Chloe threw my dress away. Derek sighed, visibly annoyed by the domestic drama. "Mom, please not this again. Chloe just knows what's appropriate for these kinds of high-profile events. Just stay home. This is a huge night for my career." They brushed past me without waiting for a reply. The front door clicked shut behind them. I stood in the hallway and made a choice right then and there. If they thought I was a burden, they were about to get a crash course in what true independence looked like. I didn't cry. Tears don't change reality. Only actions do. I went into the kitchen and pulled out my financial ledger. For the past 2 years, I had been footing the bill for the entire house: electricity, gas, water, even the high-speed internet. Derek and Chloe were living upstairs, completely rent-free, so they could save up for a down payment on a place of their own. That had been my offer. A mistake, I now realized. I sat down at the kitchen table and opened my online banking app. I canceled the monthly automatic transfer I'd been making into our shared account for groceries and household expenses. From now on, everyone was on their own. Next, I called my longtime friend Evelyn. She owned a high-end boutique downtown. "Evelyn, I need a dress for tomorrow night. Something spectacular. Do you have some time for me?" I asked. "For you, always, Marilyn. Come on down," she replied. 2 hours later, I was standing in Evelyn's boutique. I chose a sleek, deep black silk dress paired with a tailored blazer. It cost significantly more than the first dress, but I paid for it from my own savings without a second thought. I wasn't a penniless widow living on her son's charity. My husband and I had worked hard our entire lives. When I got home that evening, Derek and Chloe were sitting in the living room eating dinner. They had ordered takeout, but only for 2. There wasn't even a plate set out for me. "We figured you weren't hungry," Chloe said casually, not looking up from her iPad. I didn't say a word. I walked into the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and grabbed the key to the utility room off the hook. The utility room was in the basement right next to my laundry area. I locked the door behind me and slipped the key into my pocket. Derek and Chloe had no idea that I had made a few other preparations that evening. Tomorrow was the gala, and I was absolutely going to be there. The next morning, the atmosphere in the house was freezing. I got up at 6, drank my coffee, and read the morning paper. At 7, Derek rushed into the kitchen wearing his bathrobe and looking completely stressed. "Mom, the hot water isn't working upstairs. Can you go check the basement?" he asked, pouring himself a cup of coffee. "The boiler for the upper unit is turned off, Derek," I said, calmly, never looking up from my paper. Derek froze. "What? Why?" "Because as of today, I'm separating our utility bills. You two live upstairs rent-free, but I am no longer funding your lifestyle. If you want hot water, we'll need to have the city install a separate meter. Until then, the valve stays shut." Right at that moment, Chloe walked into the kitchen and caught the tail end of the conversation. Her face turned bright red. "This is ridiculous. We have to get ready for a gala today. You can't just cut off our water because your feelings are hurt about some dress." I stood up, slowly walked my coffee mug over to the sink, and turned around. "My feelings aren't hurt, Chloe. I'm just drawing boundaries. You threw away my property and cut me out of your plans. That was your choice. My choice is to keep my money for myself." Derek looked helplessly back and forth between his wife and me. "Mom, please not today. This is literally the biggest night of my life." "Then you two better hurry. A cold shower really wakes up the nervous system," I said softly. Chloe snorted with rage. "Forget her, Derek. She's just throwing a tantrum for attention. We'll shower at the gym. Some bitter old woman isn't going to stop us." She grabbed Derek by the arm and dragged him out of the kitchen. I watched them go. They still didn't understand who actually held the power in this house. But the night was still young. By 5 in the afternoon, the house was dead silent. I stood in my bedroom and zipped up the black silk dress. It fit perfectly. I styled my hair into an elegant updo and put on a classic strand of pearls. In the mirror, I saw a woman who was ready to take her life back. Outside, an Uber honked. It was for Derek and Chloe. I heard their footsteps in the hallway, their voices hushed in a tense argument. Derek was complaining about being pressed for time, while Chloe snapped back at him to calm down. They probably thought I was sitting miserably in my kitchen feeding the cat. I opened my door and stepped into the foyer, right as they were about to open the front door. Chloe turned around. When she saw me, she stopped dead in her tracks. Her eyes swept over my dress, the pearls, and my elegant heels. Her face contorted with anger. "What do you think you're doing, Marilyn?" she demanded. "I told you you're not invited. You're only going to embarrass Derek. You're a liability to his new position." Derek looked at me completely shocked by how elegant I looked, but he didn't say a word. He was too weak to stand up to his wife. "I'm going out, Chloe," I said evenly. "What I do is no longer any of your business." "Well, you're not riding with us in this car," Chloe hissed. She grabbed Derek's arm, threw open the front door, and practically dragged him outside. "Just leave her here to rot, Derek. She's completely irrelevant to your future." The door slammed shut. They drove off, absolutely convinced they had won. They had no idea that my own private car was already waiting around the corner. And more importantly, they didn't know who was actually footing the bill for this entire gala. The car dropped me off at the Grand Hotel downtown, where the gala was being held. During the drive, my mind drifted to my late husband's company. It was a successful mid-sized logistics firm that he had built from the ground up 30 years ago. When he passed, I inherited 100% of the company's shares. I had stepped away from the day-to-day operations and handed the reins over to our trusted CEO, Mr. Vance. No relation, just a wonderful man named Arthur Vance. Derek had been working at the company for 3 years. He had worked his way up, but he had no idea that the anonymous holding company that owned the firm was entirely mine. My husband and I had always agreed that Derek needed to earn his success through his own hard work, not through nepotism. So we kept my role completely under wraps. Derek genuinely believed I lived on a modest widow's pension. I stepped out of the car. The lights of the venue gleamed and guests were pouring into the grand ballroom. I walked through the main entrance. Near the reception desk, Arthur Vance was greeting VIP guests. The moment his eyes landed on me, his face lit up. "Marilyn, what an absolute honor. I wasn't sure if you'd make it tonight," he said, shaking my hand warmly. "I wouldn't miss my son's big night for the world, Arthur," I replied with a smile. "But I'd prefer to observe things from the background first. Please don't tell Derek I'm here just yet." "Of course, whatever you wish. Your table is reserved in the VIP tier right next to the stage," he said, signaling a waiter to escort me. I entered the ballroom. The atmosphere was upscale, with a live jazz trio playing softly in the background. I spotted Derek and Chloe standing near the catering stations. Chloe was laughing loudly, chatting up a few members of the board of directors. She looked like a queen who had just ascended her throne. She had no clue that her throne was built on incredibly thin ice. I took my seat at my table in the dimly lit VIP section. From here, I had a perfect view of the entire room without being easily spotted. A waiter brought me a glass of champagne. I watched Derek. He looked incredibly nervous, constantly adjusting his silk tie. Chloe, on the other hand, was practically glowing with arrogance. She was handing out business cards, acting like she owned the place. After about half an hour, I decided to grab a few hors d'oeuvres from the buffet. I walked slowly through the crowd. Just as I reached for a plate, Chloe turned around. The smile on her face instantly froze. "You," she whispered furiously, trying desperately not to attract the attention of the surrounding guests. She grabbed me roughly by the elbow and yanked me a few steps into a quieter corner. "What are you doing here? How did you even get in? This is a private event for the company's elite, not for paranoid mothers-in-law." Derek noticed the commotion and hurried over, his face drained of color. "Mom, why are you here? I told you. I'm here to watch the celebration, Derek," I said, my voice steady and firm. I gently but decisively pulled my arm out of Chloe's grip. "I have just as much right to be here as anyone else." "You have absolutely no right to be here," Chloe hissed. "You're an embarrassment. Look at you. You don't belong here. Derek, tell her to leave right now or I'm going to have security throw her out." Derek looked down at the floor, burning with shame. "Mom, please just go. You're ruining everything for me." I looked at my son. Looking back at me, there was no love in his eyes, only the fear of his wife and a desperate greed for status. In that exact moment, the very last spark of pity I had for him died. "Fine," I said quietly. "I'll leave." Chloe smiled triumphantly. She truly believed she had defeated me once and for all. I didn't go home. I walked straight back to the VIP lounge and asked the staff to fetch Arthur Vance for me. A few minutes later, the CEO was standing by my table. "Marilyn, is everything all right?" he asked, noticing the serious look on my face. "Arthur, regarding Derek's promotion. Has the contract actually been signed yet?" I asked directly. "No, the official announcement and signing are scheduled to happen on stage in just a few minutes. It's the highlight of the evening," he explained. Good. The promotion is officially canceled, I said calmly. Arthur looked at me in surprise, but he didn't argue. He had known me for decades and knew I never made rash decisions. May I ask why? Derek has shown a severe lack of leadership capabilities and a complete disregard for the core values of this company. Someone who allows outside influences to dictate their actions and turns their back on their own roots isn't ready to manage a team of 100 employees. We will reopen the position for applications internally. Understood, Arthur said, nodding respectfully. And how would you like to handle this? I'm going to give the keynote speech myself. Introduce me as the majority shareholder of the holding company. It's time to clear up a few misunderstandings. It will be my absolute pleasure, Marilyn, he said with a knowing smile. I sat at the table and finished my champagne. My heart rate didn't even spike. Instead, I felt a deep, liberating sense of clarity. Derek had made his choice. Now he had to live with the consequences. The stage lights flared to life, and the MC grabbed the microphone. The finale had begun. Ladies and gentlemen, the MC's voice boomed through the speakers. The entire ballroom instantly fell silent. We have reached the pinnacle of our evening, the official appointment of our new regional director. To give the introductory address, please welcome the CEO of the Vance Group, Arthur Vance. Applause erupted. Arthur stepped up to the podium. He delivered a brief, eloquent speech about the company's record-breaking year. I glanced over at Derek and Chloe, who were standing right in the front row. Chloe was holding Derek's hand, beaming with pride. She was so entirely certain of herself. Normally, I would be presenting the promotion tonight, Arthur continued. But tonight we have a very special guest. The majority owner of our holding company, who has preferred to remain in the background for many years, is here with us tonight to personally announce the decision. Please join me in welcoming Mrs. Marilyn Vance. A collective murmur rippled through the crowd. The Vance name was on the building, but nobody expected me. I stood up. The black silk dress rustled softly as I walked down the center aisle with my head held high, heading straight for the stage. As I passed the front row, I caught a glimpse of Derek's face. His eyes were wide with horror, his jaw completely slack. He looked like he had just seen a ghost. Next to him, Chloe stood frozen in sheer terror. Every ounce of color had drained from her face. She clung to Derek's arm, but he didn't even react. I walked up the steps onto the stage. Arthur stepped aside and handed me the microphone with a respectful bow. I looked out into the crowd, straight into the eyes of my son. I spoke slowly, my voice echoing clearly through the microphone. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My late husband and I built this company on the fundamental principle that success is earned through hard work, integrity, and above all, respect. Anyone who cannot show respect to the people who help them get to where they are has absolutely no business being in a leadership position at this company. The ballroom was so quiet, you could have heard a pin drop. After careful consideration, I have decided not to move forward with the scheduled promotion tonight. We will be reevaluating the regional director position over the coming weeks. Thank you all for your understanding, and please enjoy the rest of your evening. I handed the microphone back to Arthur and walked off the stage. I didn't stick around for the applause or the fallout. I walked straight toward the exit. But Derek and Chloe came running after me, catching up to me in the hotel lobby. Derek was on the verge of tears. Mom, what did you do? Why would you do that to me? That was my entire career. Chloe was shaking with a mix of rage and shock. She tried to keep her voice down, but she sounded utterly hysterical. Marilyn, this is all just a huge misunderstanding. We had no idea. I only threw that dress out because I raised a single hand. Chloe shut her mouth instantly. "This isn't just about a dress, Chloe," I said coldly. "This is about your character. You thought I was old, weak, and useless. You wanted to dictate my life while living off my dime." I turned my eyes to Derek. "Tomorrow morning, the two of you are packing your things. You have exactly 4 weeks to find your own apartment. The locks on the house are being changed tomorrow afternoon." 4 weeks later, I sat alone in my backyard. It was a beautiful, sunny Saturday morning. The moving truck had pulled out of the driveway about an hour ago. Derek and Chloe had loaded up their last remaining boxes. There were no grand goodbyes, no tears. Derek had tried to stammer out an apology before leaving, but I hadn't accepted it. Words mean absolutely nothing when they're only spoken out of a fear of losing out. They were going to have to rent a small apartment now and learn what it actually costs to live in the real world. The house was completely quiet now, but it wasn't a lonely kind of silence. It was the peaceful silence of freedom. I sipped my coffee and felt a profound sense of relief wash over me. I had my home back, my finances were completely separated, and my boundaries were set in stone. My phone rang on the table. It was Arthur. "Good morning, Marilyn. Just wanted to call and make sure you're doing all right. We have the board meeting next week." "Good morning, Arthur," I said, smiling. "Everything is wonderful. I'm actually really looking forward to the meeting. In fact, you can expect to see me around the office a lot more often from now on." "We would be absolutely thrilled to have you," he replied. I hung up and set the phone down. I looked at my hands. They were older, yes, but they were more than strong enough to steer the course of my own life. I hadn't needed shouting matches or dramatic scenes, just clear choices and firm actions. I stood up, walked inside to grab a fresh slice of coffee cake, and settled in to enjoy the rest of the day in my own quiet, peaceful home.